My name is Matthew Kane, and this is the Dirty Air F1 podcast.
We've been waiting for this all season long. The finale, the title decider, under the lights here in Abu Dhabi. It's lights out, away we go, and Hamilton gets a decent start, and he's already ahead of Max Verstappen. There's a bit of jockeying going on between Tsunoda and Ricciardo. Hamilton leads into the first corner. Norris goes wide. Sergio Perez slips through into third place. There comes Carlos Sainz, but it's Hamilton out in front. The medium tyres working well for him as his teammate Valtteri Bottas challenges the Ferrari. It is a dream start for Lewis Hamilton. Nicholas Latifi has crashed, and I think that is at turn 14, where we saw
safety car.
Michael, please, no safety car interferes in the race, please not.
This is the end, beautiful friend.
Race control are now saying lapped cars to overtake the safety car. So Norris and Alonso and Ocon and Leclerc and Vettel to
And it's
overtake
ending.
it.
And it's ending. Wow.
Michael, this isn't right.
This has been manipulated, man.
This race that started with controversy is ending with controversy.
No, Michael, no, Michael.
I'm just speechless, Lewis. Absolutely speechless.
They have shared a brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021.
Max Verstappen, you are the world champion! The world champion!
Yes! Oh my God!
Go ahead, Toto.
You need to reinstate the lap before. That's not right.
Toto?
Yes.
It's called a motor race, okay?
Sorry?
We went to car racing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Dirty Air F1 podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Kane. Thank you so much for joining me today. This episode is about the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen was crowned as the world driving champion. Before we get started, if you don't follow me on social media, please do. I am the Dirty_F1 on Twitter. My website is thedirtyarf1.com, and I am the Dirty Air F1 podcast on both YouTube and Instagram. I look forward to seeing you there. So, what an absolutely insane race to end the season. I'm surprised I'm even able to talk about it yet. Because at the end of the race, I don't know about you, but I was shaking. Well, actually, to be honest, I didn't even see the end of the race. Once the pass there where Max took over the lead on the final lap, I got up and walked away. I wonder how many of you did the same thing. How are you feeling right now? How are you feeling about all this? I've taken the opportunity to, just step back before I wanted to say anything, sort of collect all my thoughts and collect my feelings about how everything went down. And interesting, I spent about 4 hours on Twitter Spaces yesterday and another 2 hours today just listening to people talk about it. And obviously, everyone is talking about it. Everybody is talking about this race and how it went down. So, without further ado, this is the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix season-ending review. I apologize to those of you who are fans of someone other than Lewis or Max, because the content of this podcast will be focused around the two title protagonists itself. Hopefully here in the next little while, I'll be able to put together a season recap where I go through each of the drivers' performances as well as the teams and surmise all that went down and also compare them to my preseason predictions, which, man, I don't know how I feel about it right now. I actually predicted Max to win the world title this year, but I can't say that I feel too good about it. I can't feel too good about making that prediction correctly, especially the way it all went down. I mean, it's not Max's fault, but still, this is, I don't know. To some of you, it might be sour grapes. I hope it isn't, to be honest with you. I plan on trying to come at this sort of a non-partisan, level-headed point of view, but I'm also not going to be like a lot of the people out there that are talking about this as far as podcasters and video makers. I'm sort of tired of people who aren't willing to make a stand. I guess I've always been one of those people who have always never been afraid or never been shy to stand up for what was right and wrong. And of course, I've done things wrong, but I'd like to think that I do far more good than bad. I hope I do this podcast justice, because I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm going to factually back up my opinions as well. I'm not just going to blurt this stuff out of emotion. I might have yesterday, although like I said, I was sort of speechless. But heading into this race, boy, even on points, this was an absolute dream scenario for Formula One, for all its fans, and we spent the weeks leading up to it discussing all the things that could potentially go wrong. But thankfully, we got to this point. We got to this point where the championship was still in doubt, and that happened based on a combination of things happening, really. Lewis and Mercedes certainly upped their game the last few weeks. Lewis has driven absolutely brilliantly and taken the fight back to Max, and let's face it, without Lewis and his constant avoidance of crashing with Max, we never would have got to this point. Wow. I you know what? The last couple of weeks, to be honest with you, I've already recorded a few other podcasts. One was regarding the triple header, and one was dealing with both Qatar and Brazil. But I couldn't post them. I couldn't post them. My guts have been turning now for about 3 weeks, and I did not. Sounds silly, Maybe it's the superstitious side of me, but I didn't want to jinx anything. I didn't want to jinx anything, even though I predicted Max would win at the beginning of the season. I admit it. I was pulling for Lewis. And I just didn't want to post those podcasts because I didn't want to jinx it. But they'll be up shortly once I think I get over this a little bit more. Heading into this race, boy, we had lots of controversy, didn't we? We had everything from Jos Verstappen claiming that Lewis Hamilton was on performance-enhancing drugs, as evidenced by something that was passed to him before he got into the car, which just turned out to be his hair tie. We had Helmut Marko and Christian Horner publicly doubting the legality of the Mercedes car. This thing had everything. This had everything going into the finals, didn't it? And it must be said, there was certainly I guess you want to call it a dirty side to the human spirit going into the finals here. There's no doubt that Lewis has faced immense pressure, especially with his stance with BLM and We Race as One and the Hamilton Report. There's just been a lot of racial undertones building throughout the year. I mean, that's something that Lewis has had to deal with since he was a child. It was pretty evident yesterday on the spaces on Twitter, and I noticed that a lot of people, especially people of color, feel ousted right now. And I think that they have a valid right to feel that way. There are millions of fans out there right now worldwide who are feeling completely disenfranchised. Millions and millions of people who have come to the sport because of Lewis Hamilton. And what they witnessed yesterday, you know what? What they may lack in Formula One experience as far as viewership or fandom, etc., they just knew what they were watching was wrong. Their pain is undeniable. My pain is undeniable. I just feel sad. That's how I feel. Now, if you've listened to my previous podcasts, except for the early ones when I really didn't know what I was doing, but I guess I'm referring to the recent ones where it sounds at least like I speak fairly well. This one, I'm not going to over-edit this one. I'm just looking into a mic and I'm just talking. I'm just talking to all the Formula One fans out there right now that are feeling really empty, really gutted. I don't really know the words to use, to be honest. It's funny how many people were texting me saying, are you able to talk about it yet? They already knew what I was going to be like. I mean, I literally stood up when Max made the pass and Lewis couldn't get back. He got alongside him, but he didn't get by him. But, I just got up and I walked away. I mean, that's what this whole thing did to a diehard Formula One fan, a guy who loves Formula One enough that he bought all this equipment here to try and, I don't know, connect with people around the world who love the sport like he does. And it's been a long journey. I'm sitting here looking at this pile of wires that I still don't know how I ever figured out how to do this, but the friendships I've made this year have been fantastic. And the last 2 days, just listening to all these people, there's no doubt that I know that we could be friends as well, but I just chose to listen. I wasn't ready to talk. I just wasn't ready to talk. Leading up to this race, I'll tell you who had no problem having something to talk about, and that were both Toto Wolff and Christian Horner, or let's just say Red Bull and Mercedes. I mean, certainly the battle between Christian and Toto got a lot of headlines here in the last few months. Now, some of you may be Christian Horner fans and some may be Toto Wolff fans. I'll just say this. I think Christian Horner did a very good job of getting underneath people's skin. Having a day to sort of sit back and reflect on all this, I get it. I do get it. Regardless if I like Christian Horner or not, or Red Bull or Max, it doesn't even matter. This is Formula One. This is the pinnacle of motorsport. You want to call yourself a champion in this sport? Well, sometimes you have to dig deep. You have to fight and claw your way to the front. And Red Bull and Honda really showed from the get-go this year that they were going to stop at nothing. They were going to stop at nothing to win the title. And I even have my own thoughts about Perez as far as his commitment to the team goes this year. Again, I'll speak about it in the season roundup. Christian Horner, I just thought was a little too salty. And obviously, not cheering for Max down the stretch here. Obviously, I was cheering for Lewis. I found Christian Horner just, distasteful. But having thought about it, I understand. And after all, this is sport. And one thing that Ayrton Senna taught me was the difference between the man inside the car and the difference between the man on the outside of the car can sometimes be very dramatic. You want to be the best in Formula One? The term lion's been used a lot lately, but I'll go beyond that. You're a gladiator. You're a gladiator and you are fighting from start till finish. Whether you're in 10th place, 15th place, as we saw with Latifi. Latifi. He's taken a lot of flack today, and I feel bad for him. I must have, for those with young kids out there, cover their ears. But I must have said fucking Latifi yesterday 100 times. And it's too bad. You know what? It's too bad for Nicholas too. Because I even said it right after the race to my brother. I said, there's two infamous calls. Two infamous calls in Lewis's career. One is that Glock? And the second one is now, Latifi has crashed. 5 laps to go. Obviously, one of the key points in the race is what was decided at that point. But let's backtrack a little bit. Again, heading into this race, there were a lot of things being talked about. Questionable penalties that were levied in Qatar, when it was proven after the race that Max Verstappen did indeed brake test Lewis Hamilton. I don't know about you, but if somebody's ever brake tested you on the road, you can understand how quickly that can become a very serious situation. I can't imagine a Formula One car. As we saw with Mazepin when he went up the back of George Russell, it doesn't take much to get underneath one of the back of those cars if you're going into it with a Formula One car. Thank goodness for the halo. Can you imagine? Can you imagine no halo and Verstappen brake tested Lewis and he didn't react and he went up the back of him and got hit in the face with the car? That'd be a fantastic way to end the season. Anyways, brake testing isn't cool whether you're racing or you're on the street. And the fact that they gave him a 10-second meaningless penalty rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But then again, what do you want to do? I mean, this is a show after all, right? Liberty Media is a media company, and Formula One is the biggest spectacle. There's nothing better than going into the last race even on points. No grid penalties, mano a mano. This is just a shootout. And Liberty got it. Let's face it, how many people do you know are talking about Formula One right now? I mean, even people who don't really watch the sport. I mean, it's absolutely incredible the attention that Formula One is getting lately. And never more so than the last 2 days, where I really don't think that the focus on F1 right now is exactly the image that they wanted at the end of this season. There was some debate leading up into the race as to which car that the new Abu Dhabi track would favor. As you may remember, Max Verstappen won pretty dominatingly last year, but they had revised a couple of the corners. This changed a lot when it came to tire degradation and lap time, but how would it prove to improve racing? Well, as we saw, it obviously provided a key location for Max Verstappen to make his move on fresh soft tires at the end of the race. But overall, I certainly liked the new track format. I think it's going to be a huge improvement going forward, so I have actually no issues with the new track changes. I thought that was quite good. Now, as we saw early on during practice, obviously both Mercedes and Red Bull were on the pace pretty much from the get-go. And you always know that Red Bull's going to have a fast car when the AlphaTauri is fast. Well, when Pierre Gasly is fast. It was nice that Yuki Tsunoda had a fantastic finishing race to the end of the year, which I thought was pretty abysmal. If you see that the AlphaTauri had pace, that would be a key indicator that the Red Bull would also have massive pace. And as we saw in qualifying, the two teams ended up going on two different strategies. By the way, kudos to Red Bull. These guys were prepared. They were prepared for every single scenario, right down to having Checo give Max a little bit of a draft down the backstretch. Now, how much is it worth for his lap? Who knows, a tenth or two. But still, these are the fine details that win world championships. And Checo played his role perfectly during qualifying, with Max securing the pole and Lewis on the dirty side of the track on the medium tire. Well, I had to say that things were going to favor Max at the start of the race, especially when you consider that Lando Norris was in third, and although probably wanting to win his first Grand Prix, he already admitted before the race that he was going to have nothing to do with the title fight. Then in P4 you had Checo, who was also on the soft tires, and Valtteri Bottas, who unfortunately, due to some engine issues that he was having during qualifying, wasn't able to be up front or help Lewis. Can you imagine the difference in this race if Mercedes were running 1 and 2? Fine, then you could have brought Max all the way up behind Bottas. He would have had to have gotten by both of them. This is the huge importance that they talk about in reference to their teammates, having them up front and being able to help in the fight. Valtteri was non-existent. Let's face it, for the last few races, it's been Lewis against both of the Red Bulls and, to some degree, the AlphaTauris. And the AlphaTauris were also, well, at least like I said, Tsunoda was already up there as well. And he's already proved to be a bit of a thorn to pass this year. Now, it must be said, Red Bull themselves actually the last few races have had trouble getting off of the line. And it was thought that Max was potentially protecting a gearbox issue. And how they would do that would simply by changing the profiling of the launch and thus reducing stress on the gearbox. And this left Max vulnerable to Lewis making up the difference, being on the dirty side of the track and also on the medium tires. And that's exactly what Lewis did. Not only did Lewis react better than Max to the lights, he did beat him to turn 1. And to all of our relief, they both got through it. Now, all the experts pretty much agreed that Max was on the great tire for qualifying, but he was on the wrong tire for the race. Lewis beating Max to turn 1 was a huge bonus, but I don't think it was expected. I actually would have preferred that Max had gotten to turn 1 first, because I don't like the idea of Max Verstappen behind Lewis, because as we've seen, especially on the softer tire, he's definitely going to dive bomb for position. And Lewis, the last few races, has had to keep one eye on his mirrors to make sure that he left room for Max, who was definitely going to be charging into the corners. It only took a few corners for the soft tires to get up to temperature, and Max obviously made his move. I mean, it was pretty easy to see that Lewis had left Max a ton of room, anticipating that Max, obviously on the soft tire, was going to be able to do the dive bomb and take a position. And all Lewis had to do was just avoid incident to begin the race, because he was on the right tire. And despite Lewis leaving the door wide open, Max still drove him off the road. And then Red Bull gets on the radio asking for Lewis to give the position back because Max was able to stay on the road, but Lewis wasn't. What a farce. There is a reason why Villeneuve and Arnoux and their battle in Dijon, France, is remembered as it is. Both of those guys gave each other room. If one was on the inside line in the corner, he stuck to the inside line on the corner, and the guy on the outside stuck to the outside. They came together a few times, but nobody was intentionally trying to drive each other out of road. The race wasn't even a lap old, and here we were already listening to the Michael Massey, Christian Horner, Toto Wolff three-way phone call. And you know what? It actually sounded encouraging, because here we are as F1 fans. We keep looking for clarity, right? We keep looking for consistency. And we want somebody to just make a stand and say, this is what you're supposed to be able to do, and this is what you can't do, with regards to track limits or how you drive, regardless. We want consistency. We want a voice behind it that we know is going to be completely unbiased, regardless of the team. And right away, it sounded like Michael Massey was going to ensure that he was not going to play a role in this race. So therefore, they saw it as Max had driven Lewis off the circuit. Lewis did not gain a lasting advantage, meaning if you even watch how Lewis drives through that corner, he has one hand on the steering wheel as he's waving at Max, saying, what the hell? And he also hesitated in even getting going. And I'm sorry, I get it. People keep talking about, well, Max was ahead when they got to the apex. Well, that's fine, but that doesn't mean you're taking the corner at racing speed. Max was so hard on the binders into that corner that by the time he finally did get the car turned around, he was going about 4 miles an hour. That's not racing to me. Some may applaud it. Guess what? If you were actually able to watch a few laps of side-by-side racing, you'd change your mind pretty quickly. And I was pleased that Michael Massey basically said, listen, Lewis was off track because, or Lewis missed the corner because Max drove him off the track, and it wasn't going to be tolerated. No penalties, off you go. And I certainly hope I speak for both Max Verstappen fans and Lewis Hamilton fans. We got what we wanted. Lap 1 was completed, and both of our drivers were still in the race, and the cars were undamaged. Perfect scenario. The big question was now that Lewis's tires were up to temperature, would he be able to hold off Max? And he clearly could. And not only could he hold him off, he was building a gap. Now it's funny, right after qualifying, I loaded up my PlayStation and the latest Formula 1 game. Now I know you're saying, oh, it's just a game, whatever. It's still, it gives you an idea. But I was very interested to see how long the tires for the respective drivers would last. So I loaded up both Max full tanks, start of the race, same time of day, etc., all the same conditions. And right around lap 7, I started to notice that these tires were going off. And by lap 12 or 13, they were pretty useless. Now, after a few laps, I did manage to sort of alter my style of driving as far as entering and exiting the corners. And I don't know if the tires came back or perhaps I just drove smoother. I'm not too sure. But I did manage to start lapping on those soft tires probably up around the 18 lap mark, where at least it was consistent. And I was comfortably driving about 2 seconds off the pace from when they were brand new. So not too bad. And that's why I wasn't surprised that Checo had something left when Lewis came after him. Now with Lewis pulling away from Max's tires going off, Mercedes were in the perfect position right now. And obviously Red Bull had to pit Max first. And Mercedes quickly covered him off by pitting Lewis. Now if you were cheering for Lewis, this was a perfect scenario. Lewis now had a gap. He had the tires to go all the way to the finish. And fingers crossed, he was not going to have any more dealings with Max on the racetrack itself, and this was just a clear sailing away victory. The only way that Red Bull could cover this off was to keep Perez out. And if you look at Checo's lap times right after Lewis was pitting, he obviously was going slow. He was saving whatever was left in those soft tires. And as it turns out now, there's a lot of chatter about how Red Bull potentially had fueled Checo pretty light before the race. That's why he retired. That would, again, make complete sense. They had completely sacrificed Perez in the title effort, all to help Max. And so here you have Perez on a light car who'd been kind of cruising around, protecting those soft tires. He had a full battery, and he managed to help Max close that gap, right? I think it was almost 6 seconds that Checo cost Lewis. And I will say this, I'm not a huge fan of that kind of racing, but at least Checo raced Lewis completely fair. And they both stayed on the track. And for some reason, I didn't have any fear that Checo would race Lewis dirty. So that was okay. And again, like we saw earlier, I believe it was Hungary, where Ocon won and Alonso fended off Hamilton for darn close to 10 laps, I think it was. So here we were. The gap had been closed once again. Both guys were on decent tires and they were going to the end, and this was in their hands now. And that was until Giovinazzi pulled over. And he certainly pulled over in a strange spot, didn't he? I mean, right out of that exit of that apex, if another car had gone off there, that could have been pretty hairy. Again, safety car comes out, allows Max to pit. Under those conditions, the pit stop is basically, the time lost is cut in half. But now that he was out on fresh tires, he was able to lap much quicker than Hamilton. And now that once sought-after track position of being in the lead and being away from everything was now no longer an advantage for Lewis or Mercedes. And it was Red Bull who had the opportunity to roll the dice for the remainder of the race. I mean, if we want to play the woulda, coulda, shoulda game, let's just go back to that incident between Max and Lewis where they came together. Technically, especially based on today's trends, Max's pass was legit. And theoretically, according to the rules, Lewis should have given that position back. So let's say for a second that they had done so, and Max was now leading at the end of lap 1. Well, Lewis already showed that he had the pace to stick with him. So Lewis still would have been able to pit after Max, and he would have been in the same situation, because he would have done the exact same thing that Max had done once Giovinazzi's virtual safety car came out. He would have pitted again. Having said that, though, instead of being on 40-lap-old tires at the end, he would have been on about 15, 20-lap-old tires. he could have potentially have had a chance? I don't even know what I'm saying. Lewis had no chance. He's a sitting duck. And I think not only Lewis Hamilton fans knew that around the world, despite how great he is and his driving abilities, I think every Max Verstappen fan around the world knew it as well. We need to backtrack here. After Max had pitted during the Giovinazzi safety car period, Lewis was basically given the task of controlling 0.8 of a lap for the remainder of the race. And he was comfortably doing that. And then he came into lap traffic. I think he lost about 5 seconds, passing the back markers. This is, of course, something that Max never had to do in the end. It became pretty apparent with about 10 laps to go that Lewis was going to have this. Lewis had done nothing wrong the entire race. He hadn't put a wheel wrong. And we as fans were on the verge of Formula One history. Sir Lewis Hamilton, 8 times world driving champion, and unquestionably the greatest Formula One driver of all time. And he's not done. Don't forget that. He's not done. But as I've said on this podcast since the very beginning of the season, something about this season has felt incredibly contrived. And I don't know how you can argue that the end of the season could have been more contrived. It's amazing all the different ways that pundits and fans thought that this season would end. I don't think I ever heard anyone come up with this outcome. And I know that Michael Massey is underneath a lot of heat right now, and rightfully so, to be honest. But as I've come to understand that he actually runs quite a skeleton crew, and his workload is enormous. And basically, they're looking at the moment itself and saying, like, Michael Massey didn't even have the capability to respond quickly, to be able to make a good decision. I remember a quote I read when I was young, and it always stuck with me. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. I'm a professional golfer by trade. I wish I was a Formula One driver. Probably wouldn't fit in the car anymore, though. But even I knew that, you know what, ever since the mandate in Baku, where they decided they didn't want any more races finishing behind the safety car, it was okay then to have a 2-lap shootout. The correct decision here was pretty simple. Latifi has an accident with 5 laps to go. The race is immediately red flagged for a number of reasons. Number 1, he hit the barrier quite hard, so you got to check to make sure that the barrier is okay. Number 2, there was a lot of debris all over the track. Number 3, the front brakes lit on fire, and the car was leaking oil. They finally managed to get the extinguishers on the front brakes, which also coated all over the track. A number of the drivers had made reference to this on their team radios, which you'll hear afterwards. And for those of you who are blaming Latifi, what's the point? You know what? Just like Timo Glock, Latifi's going to now have a tag that'll follow him now forever. And anybody who thinks that he did this intentionally, come on, give it up. Had the race been red flagged right then and there, 5 laps to go, all the cars come in, they all get on fresh tires. All the lap cars are allowed to unlap themselves during the outlap behind the safety car. Then you have another following lap after that, where the safety car comes in. And now you have a 3-lap shootout, everyone on equal terms. But instead in this situation, the rules changed. I mean, something that people aren't really talking about is, do you know how many people they have per team that are just sitting in a trailer in the back in front of a laptop working on strategies and race predictions? The fact that Red Bull even brought Max in and put him on the soft, knowing that this race was going to finish under safety car conditions according to the rules, meant that they probably thought that they could get in Massey's ear. And that's exactly what happened. All the drivers expected to unlap themselves, and were surprised when they couldn't. And then all of a sudden you could. And then all of a sudden it was only the cars that were between Max and Lewis. But for everyone else, it didn't apply. And not only did those cars that were let through not even get around the circuit, because I have overhead pictures of the GPS track monitoring system, and these guys were 4 corners ahead. So now you're starting a race where cars are immediately under blue flag conditions. And you've got races right now going on between McLaren and Ferrari. This is ridiculous. And I still think having 3 laps to go with new tires on is an absolute gift for Red Bull, because they were completely outperformed. They were completely outperformed by Mercedes and by Lewis. Now again, I'm lucky. I'm just a small guy. I'm not a big outfit over here. I'm sitting in a walk-in closet with a desk and a microphone and a laptop. I don't have to please any sponsors. I don't do this for money. So I can speak freely. Lewis Hamilton was completely robbed. History was changed. Having had a few days to think about it, and again, like I mentioned, I've been on Twitter and been on various different F1 spaces listening to how people are dealing with this. I think Liberty Media made a serious error. I think the FIA made a serious error. They chose the show. And when you're only looking as far ahead as your toes, you're going to bump into something. And what they've bumped into here is a movement. The I Stand with Lewis Hamilton movement. I stand for what's right. This was ridiculous. It was criminal. It was disgusting. It was heartbreaking. And in the one moment that F1 had a chance to shine, it dropped the ball. You know, the initiative, "We race as one." Damn, this is hard. It's nice to say the words, but Formula One doesn't race as one. And the champion was denied. And for those of you that, it's amazing, it's always referred to as Michael Schumacher's record. Check me if I'm right, but I believe Lewis Hamilton already has 7 World Driving Championships to his name. It's already his record. And I know I'm one of the few that I still feel that it's right to be honest about Michael's career, despite what's happened to him. Because trust me, whether you liked Michael as a driver or not, which I did not, the moment he was injured, I just cared about him as a human being. And it was awful. It's still awful. Like I said, Ayrton taught me how to separate sport from life. Strange how I thought when I was going to tune in on Sunday, I had the chance to see Lewis Hamilton become an 8-time world driving champion. I can say that I was there. I watched his entire career from the very beginning. I was at his very first win. And after the race, I felt cheated. I felt angry. I was shaking. I couldn't even talk. Still can't talk. Now, after a couple of days, I realized that I've been given something so much greater as a fan. I got to witness what a champion acts like. In the absolute darkest of times. Because all we ever see is Lewis. Well, what we mostly see with Lewis is great times. Race wins. Pole positions. Championships. It's not often you get to see a champion in that position. And the way he handled himself is... He's an icon. And people will use the word icon and legend and GOAT all the darn time. I'm sorry, but there's only one Lewis Hamilton. And he transcends Formula One. He is this generation's Muhammad Ali. And he's the best Formula One driver I've ever seen. And I'm proud to be his fan. And after watching how he handled himself when he came out and he shook Max's hand, and his dad went over and congratulated Max and Jos. You know, before the race, Jos said he respected Lewis as a driver, but other than that, nothing. Well, Jos, I hope you were paying attention on Sunday. And I hope your son was paying attention. Because if you don't respect Sir Lewis Hamilton after Sunday, then I'm never going to have you on my show. Wouldn't it be amazing if Lewis heard this? And he can hear how all these people have come together to support him. Man, he transcends the sport. He's bigger than F1. And on Sunday, F1 chose the show. But the show's not over. I know the championship feels good right now, Max. And Christian. And Helmut. Honda. And Red Bull and all their staff. Kudos to them. They brought out the best in Lewis Hamilton. But we all got to see it. Because regardless of what Christian says all year long, which is hilarious because he talks about how Mercedes always had the better car. Well, how can you say that with a straight face with Adrian Newey standing right beside you? Not to mention the guys from Honda who brought an engine out 2 years early just to try and win the championship. And they sacrificed Sergio Perez all year long to make sure Max had a fair, well, more than fair shot at the title. It's pretty hard to argue with a guy who has a year where he's on the podium 18 times with 10 wins. Make no bones about it. Max Verstappen dug deep this year. He drove fantastically. Sometimes over the edge, in my opinion at least, but he drove fantastically. For the time being, he's the 2021 world champion. Now the next steps, as I understand it, are the process would go to what's called the ICA, International Court of Appeals. specifically speaking about rules 42.12 and 42.13 of the FIA rulebook. Lewis has yet to issue a public statement. Rumor has it that Lewis doesn't want Mercedes to follow this any further, and he certainly doesn't want to win the title in a courtroom. But this may be far away from Lewis's hands by now. The I Stand With Lewis Hamilton movement is a powerful thing, and if you've been on Twitter the last few days, it's incredible. It's incredible. People from all walks of life, all around this globe, are right now banding together, and they're demanding an explanation. They're demanding justice, because what happened on Sunday was an injustice. It's been an injustice to Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, and there will forever be an asterisk beside this world championship. And it deserved so much better, whether Lewis wants Mercedes to or not. Trust me, Mercedes have got their ear to the ground. They can hear the pulse. They know what's going on. They have to fight this. This is precedent. This is precedent going forward. And you know what? They actually have a pretty good chance. Legally, that is. I, for one, don't think anything will change. But the point is, they stand their ground, they back their champion, and they fight for what's right. And if you're listening to this and you're a Formula One fan, if you're a Max Verstappen fan, I don't think we could ever argue that that's a bad thing. I honestly feel terrible for Max as well. Can you imagine dedicating your life to something, and after being in the sport for 6 years, trying to meet your father's expectations, who's already done the sport at a high level, you finally get to the pinnacle, you get to the top, you win this thing. But you shouldn't have. And I think you know it. Now you may be thinking, well, you know what, dude? You're a golfer. What the hell do you know? So I think the best thing to do right now is to listen to what their peers think. Because there's going to be a lot of pressure on these guys in the coming weeks to stand up for Sir Lewis. Oh, that's right. I failed to mention. Lewis Hamilton was knighted today. And he attended the ceremony with his mother, and it was awesome. Congratulations, Sir Lewis, and congratulations to the Hamilton family. But there's going to be a lot of pressure from his fellow drivers to stand up, to voice their opinion, to #RaceAsOne. So let's listen in to what each of the drivers was going through and communicating with their engineers during the last few laps, during all that chaos. Let's listen in as to what their thoughts were.
Okay, Pierre, lapped cars will not be overtaking. So Schumacher will be blue flag, and you will be racing Yuki and Bottas for P5, P4. Please confirm you understand.
Yeah, who is P3?
Sainz.
Why Schumacher doesn't let us pass now? Can you ask Michael?
This is instruction from them. It is what it is.
So will he get blue flag straight away?
He will have blue flag straight away at the restart. He will have blue flag straight away at the restart. At the moment, we stay where we are. Okay, lapped cars are gonna go by now. Lapped cars are going by now. Not sure what they're doing. Okay, Schumacher is saying where he is. Sorry, safety car in this lap.
Safety car deployed, safety car deployed. Okay, Lando, as it stands, we're beating Leclerc, but Sainz will beat us. In order to get him, we need to overtake...
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, we need to overtake Tsunoda, who's 2 cars ahead. So in front is Hamilton, then Gasly, then
That's
Tsunoda.
behind the leader now, and they're all ahead of the safety car, so it's possible.
Okay, Lando, so to be very clear, it's not over yet. Both AlphaTauris pitted behind the safety car, and they've fitted softs, and they're right behind Carlos. We just need to not lose position at the restart. So Lando, they've said that lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. Okay, Lando, Verstappen is 5 cars back. We won't get blue flags to begin with.
Screen on the safety car.
Yeah, they want
So
you
they're
to
gonna pass
overtake
past.
the safety car. They want you to overtake the safety car.
And safety car deployed. Safety car deployed.
That's the end of the race, right?
Still six laps to go, I think.
How much do we lose if we box now? For soft.
We lose one place. We lose one place.
If we box, we have nothing to lose.
Stay out. Stay out. Stay out.
When is the safety car going to let us pass?
I will keep you updated on that. Still no information.
Will the race restart?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Will the race restart?
Yes, we think it will restart. So not sure if we will let us unlap ourselves or not.
Come on.
So no unlap, we will go straight for a restart. So if we overtake Ocon, we will beat Norris for the championship. Maybe the race will finish like this, but keep working on the tires and you can overtake the safety car now. You have to overtake the safety car now.
So that's a safety car.
Do we have a gap to box into?
Yeah, we're just going to keep an eye on what happens to the cars ahead. If a lot of cars stop ahead, we might not.
Let me know.
Stay out. Yeah, she's doing a good job with these tyres. Just keep working on the brakes. It is Verstappen behind on an out lap. Behind him is Ricciardo on used stuff. So we believe 4 laps at the end of this one.
It will take them longer than that.
Yeah, copy that.
There's stuff on the track.
They've got to let you...
And they did the fire thing.
Yeah.
Extinguisher is the word I was looking for.
Extinguisher, roger that.
Michael wants to get this race restarted. Should let us through.
So before they do a restart, they will let you guys through. So if they do give us the instruction to unlap ourselves, it's you've got 4 cars between you and the Hamilton, the race leader. So all 4 of those will be unlapping themselves. You stay behind. So lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. So behind you, you've got Verstappen on fresh softs, Ricciardo and Lance. Ahead,
but
Leclerc.
Verstappen is lapped. No, I'm lapped to him. So it's blue flag basically as soon as we go.
Yeah, confirm, you're right.
Just let us through and start the race.
So we haven't had a restart yet. Behind Verstappen is Ricciardo on new softs.
I don't understand why he's not letting us through. He's just messing this thing up.
Yeah, copy. Okay, you've been told to overtake. You can overtake? Yeah. You can overtake Hamilton, yeah. Okay, checker flag, Sebastian checker flag, P11. Good last lap. So, to let you know what's happened, so they let the 4 of us cars...
I saw it.
And Verstappen won the race.
Yeah, I saw that. But why did they not let us go straight away? This is what I still don't understand. Anyways.
Okay, safety car. We're staying out.
I think we need to unlap ourselves, or what do we do?
Not yet. Let's wait for race control to give that instruction.
Yeah, we should unlap and get the job done until they retire the car. Because if not, it's going to be too late.
Yeah, copy that.
I mean, they need to start the procedure now, so meanwhile they retire the car, they pick up the car, and then we're ready to go.
So at the end of this lap, there will be 20 laps remaining.
Yeah, come on, let's unlap the guys, and next lap is green, so in 2 laps time.
Okay, so he's not going to allow us to unlap ourselves.
Understood.
Okay, so we got Verstappen in P2 is about 4 cars behind you.
Yeah, and he should be 2 cars in front of me.
Okay.
Safety car has the green light.
Yeah, you can overtake. So Norris is first. Okay.
Yeah, but this has to be done few laps ago.
Yeah, copy.
Unbelievable.
Let's keep the speed up because he might call the safety car in this lap. Okay, yeah, safety car is in this lap, so...
Okay, copy. So I can go flat out.
So no overtaking yet for the control line.
Safety car, staying out, keep delta positive.
Can you give me an update of the front?
So Lewis, 40 laps old, the Red Bull box was soft, so that new softs.
Why did Lewis not stop?
He would have lost track position. So there are 5 lap markers between Lewis and Verstappen.
Okay, good.
Safety car.
We should box, no?
We are boxing, windows open, Lance, box.
Who's the car in front of me? There's the McLaren and the Red Bull.
That's Ricciardo and Verstappen.
So Verstappen will cut the queue, yeah?
Yeah, so when we're instructed, we'll both be going past Verstappen if they give us the instruction to unlap. So we will not be allowed to overtake, they will not allow us to unlap ourselves, Lance.
So the race will resume in this position?
Yes, we believe so.
Sainz and Bottas behind will be blue flags for you straight away.
There's cars overtaking the safety car?
Not us. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. Safety car is in this lap. Cars behind will have blue flags. Cars behind will have blue flags.
I don't understand why I should be able to overtake the safety car.
Okay, Lance, that's checkered flag. We'll explain what happened. We'll explain later.
Yeah, man, what the fuck?
We'll explain later.
Safety car. Daniel, medium or soft? There is 5 laps to go.
Let's go soft.
Daniel, we're box.
Yep, box.
Okay, Daniel, so the car ahead of you is Verstappen. Ahead of him is Vettel, who stayed out, and then Leclerc. Okay, Daniel, so there's 3 laps to go. This is P13. Ahead of you is Vettel, Leclerc, and then Ocon. They're all out on old tyres. Vettel 31 hard, Leclerc 19 medium, Ocon 39 hard.
Okay, understood.
Lapped cars may now... Oh, lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. So, Daniel, your challenge will be to follow Verstappen through when he gets blue flags for everybody.
Okay, understood. Do you think it'll restart this lap?
Still showing double yellows, but it may do. Daniel, behind you is Stroll and then Sainz. So if we can make good progress, we may be able to avoid getting blue flags from Sainz. Safety car ending, red button off. Daniel, they've allowed the lap cars ahead of us to overtake the safety car, but not us. There'll be 1 lap racing.
Okay, so I stay where I am?
Yeah, so stay where you are. This is a normal safety car restart. Recharge off. Okay, buddy, that's the checkered flag. Okay, Daniel, so we finished P12 in the end. Obviously not enough laps, and with the other cars being allowed to go after the safety car, then that pit stop didn't help.
Okay, yeah, I got no idea what they did with letting cars through. Obviously I wasn't really in that anyways, but it seems strange.
Yeah, it was a bit unusual. Unfortunately, that pit stop at the end, which I think would have been a good idea, didn't work because they only let through some of the cars.
Alrighty, cheers guys. I'm glad I'm not a part of that. Whatever just happened, it seemed pretty fucked up.
Safety car deployed, Max. Safety car deployed.
These back markers should get out of the way. They should unlock themselves.
Yep, they will once that message comes through. Okay, so stay online, Max. Those lap cars are now being allowed to overtake. Stay online, let them go off the racing line. Cancel that. Lap cars will not be allowed to overtake.
Yeah, of course. Typical decision.
It's classic.
I'm not surprised.
I think all the cars ahead of you are going to pass Hamilton. Everybody behind you will stay in position. Yeah, so everybody up to Vettel are allowed to overtake Hamilton.
Safety car. And stay out.
Why cannot stay normal race?
Yeah, it should be longer though. We are losing free position on boxing, so better stay out and look after your tires.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it would be unfair if they restart this race, but should stay behind safety car.
Yeah, understood.
Giving massive advantage to some people.
It seems some oil reported where they crash. Watch out for oil. Was it oil there?
Yeah, still the white thing. We need to clean it a bit before we go racing. Okay. If not, it could be dangerous. I am not going racing with all these cars in front of me. They need to unlap.
Yeah, that's the message for them. They should pass, but stay calm. They will not unlap, so they will not unlap themselves, so they will stay there.
Very, very strange. Very unfair. it's not my race, these guys, and I will have to race them. And they will all have blue flags. Talk to Michael. It's going to be a mess with all the blue flags.
It's very likely that the race will finish like this. I'll try to see, because it's unsafe at the moment still. How is the oil situation?
Bad, but the worst is the blue flag. It's going to be dangerous with so many cars fighting for position. So many cars, with blue flags. It's going to be a mess. And unfair for us. Very unfair.
Copy.
Normally, they always unlap. What's happening?
Lapped cars, they are unlapping. Safety car in this lap to warm up on the
Tell
bike.
this Aston Martin to unlap himself. What is he doing?
Okay.
What are these two guys doing? They are not unlapping themselves. They need to go.
Restart like this, they restart like this. S1 for the restart. Treat them as lapped cars.
So we have a double yellow, exit turn 4, turn 14, so turn 14, yellow, entering it now, stay left, staying out, safety car, keep the delta positive.
Shit, whatever.
So strap mode 1, strap mode 1, negative.
That's unbelievable. What's the situation behind me?
So, situation is, Verstappen has pitted. He had a free pit stop. We would have lost track position to him. 4 laps remaining when you cross the line. So this field has to bunch, and then they have to send lap cars through. So it may not restart.
Oh, fuck. Is he right behind me?
He will be, once they've sorted out all the order. This is going to take a while to sort out.
With new tyres?
Copy, Lewis. We would have lost track position if we had pitted.
You need to tell the safety car to speed up. He's not flat out down this straight.
Copy, Lewis.
The safety car's not going full gas down the straight.
Copy, Lewis. Understood.
How many cars are behind me and in between us?
5 cars between you. The field still hasn't bunched.
How many laps left?
There'll be 3 when you cross the line. So lapped cars are now allowed to overtake, so no weaving, stay on line. They're not going to overtake, actually. They're not going to allow the cars to overtake. So we believe they may restart the race like this.
There's still a load of debris down there.
And copy that, Lewis. So he's now going to let the car through.
Gotta get off the safety car.
So he's going to let 4 cars through. And safety car in this lap. Safety car in this lap.
Yes, it's been manipulated, man.
Oh, I'm just speechless, Lewis. Absolutely speechless.
We're all speechless. But we got your back, champ. I mean, it's pretty hard to deny when you look at the minutes put out by the FIA. At 6:27, lapped cars were not allowed to overtake. At 6:29, Christian Horner messaged Michael and said, "We just need 1 lap without lapped cars." At 6:31, lapped cars between Lewis and Max only, 5 cars in total, were allowed to pass. And at 6:31, the safety car was called in. The track was still yet to be deemed clear by the FIA, yet the race started. I don't know, folks. This just don't smell right. It just doesn't smell right. It doesn't feel right. And I guess we'll find out in the coming months what's to come of it. I don't see how Formula One can clean up this mess. I just don't see it. But I'm always interested in what you have to say. So please leave your thoughts down in the comments below. How does F1 get out of this mess? How do they redeem dignity back to the championship? Whether it's Max or Lewis who's declared the winner in the end. I don't have that answer. But thank you for listening. Because this episode was very different. This wasn't a celebration of Formula One and my love for the sport. This was grieving. And there's a lot of us out there grieving right now. And kudos to a lot of the Max Verstappen fans who have stepped up and said, you know what, I don't like this either. At the end of the day, we all love F1. We love the sport. Who knows, at the end of all of this, perhaps we'll all have come a lot closer together, including Lewis and Max. And that actually would be pretty cool. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And a special shout out, birthday, to my friend Steve. Hope you had a great day, pal. I'm going to leave you now with the sounds of Lewis Hamilton's brother, Nicholas, as he watched Lewis on the final lap. Until next time, everybody, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Oh, bro, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry, Lewis. I'm so sorry, bro. I'm so sorry, Lewis.